This video is probably more for people like me, beginners who are looking for, I suppose, the best quality camera at a somewhat affordable price. Now, the quality part really depends on what you're building and your use case. So, Canon, Nikon, Blackmagic, Lumix, they all make gun cameras. So, just figure out what your use case is and pick a brand and send it. And as far as the somewhat affordable part, it's because all of this stuff is expensive, Unless you're already making money from this or you plan on making money from it, it'll come to play when you're trying to pick a camera to make whatever content it is you're making. So I don't want to carry on about all the features. I'm just going to assume that you know about them. I just want to focus on the affordability part and why the FX30 may be a good option for you. So the key word here is use case, right? And for me, it's long form interviews. So my criteria for a camera is very simple. I wanted the best quality that I could rely on within a certain budget. And because I decided to go Sony, I'd really narrowed down my choices to two cameras here. It was the FX30 or the FX3. Now, as much as I would have loved the FX3, the problem was that once I'd bought the camera body, a couple of good lenses, and a few extras, it would have cost around 10,000 Australian dollars, and I would have had so many gaps in my work setup that I couldn't afford to fill. So, for the same price, I managed to pick up two brand new Sony FX30s, a few prime lenses, and all the bits and pieces. And so straight away, I had a two cam setup. I had quality glass, and I still had access to a lot of the cinema features that the FX3 offered. Now, if you do decide to go to FX30, it's probably around this time that you're going to run into the age-old debate of APS-C versus full frame. So some of the issues people have with this camera is that it's an APS-C censored camera, which means all your images are going to be cropped by 1.5, I think. It's not going to be the best performing low light. It doesn't take great photos, and it doesn't come with some of these premium exposure tools like false color. So these are all valid points for sure, but remember the key word here is use case. And none of these gripes that people have with it really affect what I'm building. For starters, when it comes to the crop sensor, all my shots are going to be mid-framed or close-ups. I don't ever plan on filming in an environment where I don't control the lighting, so low light's not an issue. Everything I'm doing is going to be video centric, so I don't need that premium quality photos from this thing. And the ones I have taken are pretty good. And as far as exposure goes, all my shots are exposed using an external monitor, and I've got false color lights loaded onto the camera bodies. And lately I've been learning how to use EL zone, which I'm surprised not more people talk about EL zone. You know, maybe I don't know if it's just me, but I find it easier to expose all my shots using EL zone opposed to, say, the waveforms and the zebras and all that jazz. So I'll learn there's other things as well, but I really want to focus on the EL zone because I just find it easier and more efficient. Now, I do plan on going full frame at some point, but it's not going to be anytime soon. This camera is going to be good enough for at least 3 years. And in between now and when I do go full frame, I'll be able to probably spend more money on better lighting. And because this thing's a E-mount camera, I can still invest in full frame E-mount glass and it'll still be compatible with this camera. So by the time I do make that jump from APS-C to full frame, the highest cost, unless I change ecosystem, is just going to be the camera body. Um, because we're talking about affordability here, I suppose there could be an argument that if I had decided to spend, say, $3,000 or $4,000 more, I could have gone with one of these newer cameras like the FX2, the Nikon ZR, or even the A7 V. And they're all gun cameras, but I hope this makes sense. One of the biggest attractions to this camera was that the fact that it's been out for a few years. So I know exactly what it can do. I know it's going to be reliable in my long shoots, and I know what the limitations are. And because it's been out for so long, there's so many good people out there that have found the workarounds when it comes to the limitations. So it just made sense to go with a product that had been tried and tested in the field. The last point I want to make is, I suppose, the overall cost. You know, you don't have to do all this. I could have started doing this with much less and much cheaper. As a matter of fact, by doing it this way, it goes against all conventional wisdom and advice, which says to start with what you got. And I do agree to a certain point, but for me, I wanted to start with the best I could afford because I wanted to find out as quickly as I could how serious I was about upper tier. Is upper tier just going to be a hobby, or is this something that I seriously want to turn into a proper brand and start turning into a future career? And so I had to put in more than I was, I suppose, comfortable with. time, energy, including money. Um, it's how do you say it? I think one of the biggest traps we all fall into is that when you're building something new or you're learning a new skill, you tend to just follow advice blindly. And so there's a lot of good advice and there's a lot of information out there, but man, it's easy to forget that at the end of the day, if this whole thing fails, it's your name, your skin in the game, you know? It's your time, your energy, and if it doesn't work out, you're the one who has to deal with the disappointment and the shame of failure. For sure, I plan on taking board and all the constructive criticism and all the good advice and all the information, but at the same time, I'm going to hold my own counsel where I need to. If this thing doesn't work out, if Upper-Tier fails, it's not going to be because I chose the wrong camera. It'll be because I either didn't want it good, bad enough, or I just sucked. Anyway, that's the video. Hope this helps. If you're looking for a quality camera at a somewhat affordable price, I hope this sort of gives you a bit more insight into it. The next video I'm going to make is going to be about the audio I'm using to build this whole thing. That'll be a doozy because I made so many mistakes when it came to audio. Yeah, that's